and yet related. So as Connie has told you, DESE has new mentoring standards, and one of the components of those standards is this idea of cognitive coaching. So will you turn to either the, why don't you turn to the very back page where it's blank in the packet, just the totally blank page at the very end, okay? One of the other things that I know personally in my district we've been doing informally, but now we need to maybe formalize, is the idea of observing each other. So you observing your mentee observing you or some other experienced teacher, and giving some feedback, right? Which is maybe, you may have done that before, but maybe not. And that's something that DESE is saying, yes, we want you to do that. And they've specified at least this many times. So we want to be sure that, you know, you feel comfortable giving feedback, because we don't want to crush anyone. And you're not the evaluator, right? You're the mentor. So what kind of feedback would really be effective and helpful for their learning? So we're going to spend the last bit here thinking about feedback. All right? So you can either use that back page, or if you like Post-it notes better, you can use Post-it notes. It makes no difference to me. But what I'd like you to think about is your own experience with feedback. So think of some feedback that you've given, like a student, something you've written on a student paper, or submitted on a report card, or as a learner, some feedback that was given to you as a student, or like you were doing your master's classes, or could even be feedback from an evaluator. But just try to think of 3 specific examples, like what was the actual feedback, and write it as close to word for word as you can. So either on sticky notes or on that blank back page. Try to think of at least 3 specific examples of feedback. So like one example is, good job. That's one. You come up with a few more. Don't use that one. It can be good feedback or bad feedback. It doesn't matter. Okay, we're going to be working over here where the charts are. So if you're in the back, if you want to come bring your chair up, but bring that feedback. The only thing you need is whatever you just wrote down. You don't need anything else. You don't need to write with anything. So if you want to come a little closer, what I'm going to do is an activity that's called concept attainment. So you just need to be able to see the charts. So if you can't see the charts, come on up. It's okay. We won't bite. Move your chairs, scooch up, reorganize yourself, because I know it's kind of hanging low here. And we're going to see how I can talk on the mic and write at the same time. We'll see if that works. So concept attainment, you may know, it's one of Marzano's strategies that is a real power strategy. You may have used it in classrooms like Guess My Rule. All right. So I have 5 kinds of feedback up here that are not labeled. A, B, C, D, E are just random letters, right? You're going to share with me some of the feedback you wrote down, and I'm going to put it on one of the charts. And then you're going to try to figure out what's the label of the chart, what's the title of the chart based on your feedback. Okay, so I'm going to get my little markers ready here. I'm going to start with the first one that I gave you, which was good job. And that goes on poster A. Who has another example? I always have a little bit of trouble making sure I have it in the right place. Okay. What else? Sorry, it's kind of low. My handwriting's going to be crummy. I apologize. What else? Okay? Keep calling them out. I'm going to add on to that just a little bit. So this goes with the ... one, right? And I slightly edited it for my purposes. I'll give you a couple more. I'm going to say that would be the same as this one. Okay. No, it's okay. That's all right. I understand. Anybody want to try, think they know the category? And you could tell me, I think this one would go on poster B. What do you mean by I? Yeah. So what would another example be? Okay. So we're going to call this, and I'll give you a chance to write these down in a minute, so don't worry about it. Personal observations. So that means, as the teacher, I'm telling you that I like it or I don't like it. This is how we often get those little teacher pleasers, because it's I want to please you, because you can tell me what you personally like. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is personal to the person making the, giving the feedback. Anybody else want to take another guess on what one of their categories is? Say again. It's not non-specific. What? Okay, I've got that's awful and a frowny face too. Not emotional. In the back. Judgment. There you go. Ding, ding, ding. You, as the observer, are judging whether it's good or bad in your feedback. This is good or this is bad in some way. A plus is a judgment. It is based on some data, but still, it is a judgment, right? You have your head kids who said, I don't know why I got an A or a B or a C or whatever. It's just a judgment on your part as far as they're concerned, a lot of times. Okay, so judgment, personal observation. We don't have enough information up here. Let me give you a couple more. How about one of my favorites? Oh my gosh. Vague, you ever get that on a paper? Vague, what does that mean? When I had a kid who said, what does vagui mean? I don't know what that is. Okay. Okay, this one is so you have a rubric and you tell them 3 out of the 5 standards were met. Okay, or 9 out of 10 were correct. Or you have 5 grammar mistakes in the paper. It's another word for quantitative. Yeah. You're just giving data. There's no judgment associated with this. It's just observable data. Okay? Not good, not bad, just data. Now you might say, well, you have 5 grammar mistakes, but what if it's a 400-page paper? Then is that a judgment? I don't know. So just observable data. Okay. This is kind of a giveaway. How is this particular one different from the rest? By doing what? A question, right? So we're going to call this mediative questions. And the mediative part means in order to help you think. That's the mediative part. So by saying you have 3 out of 5 standards met, how might you get a 4? What might you do next time to get a 4? Okay, I'm giving data, and then I'm asking a question to get them thinking. All right, questions about that? All right, I'm going to go back to the screen, and you can, find my clicker, here it is, thank you. Yep. Okay, so here are the 5 categories. Now this might be a little controversial because, you know, we give feedback all the time as teachers, but this is based on research, okay? These first 3 is evaluative. If you are giving a judgment, if you are giving a personal observation, or you're making an, oh, I forgot C, sorry, skipped right over it. C is inferences. Okay, organized, could it be possible that it's organized to you but not organized to me? Is it possible that it's vague to you but not vague to me? Is it possible that you're on the right track, but I have no idea what you mean by what the right track is? So these are, you're inferring that as the person getting the feedback, you might not be totally clear what it is that they see. Does that make sense? So C is inferences. I apologize, I skipped one. All 3 of those, what you're doing is evaluating the person or the product, okay? There's some interesting research around evaluation in that there's not a lot that says it supports growth. We give a lot, we evaluate a lot of things, but just evaluation alone doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get better. When you write A on a paper or C on a paper, does every kid want to then go back and make it better or add more or understand even why they got what they got? Some, but not all, right? It's just because you make a judgment doesn't mean I now know more as a result of that judgment. These 2 are in the realm of coaching, data and mediative questions, because their goal is to support thinking. So instead of saying, this is good, offering something like, you have 4 out of 5 standards that you were able to demonstrate in this paper. What did you do to get a 4? So now I can't just walk away from that, right? I have to think, well, what did I do? Or what might you do next time in order to get 5 out of 5? Okay, I'm immediately thinking as opposed to I'm done, right? If I get those first 3, a lot of times, okay, then I'm happy or I'm sad, but I'm done. I'm not thinking about it anymore. It's why I think a lot of times in schools, you know, especially in high schools, the kids, once they're done with the test, they're not done with the unit, that's done. I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't remember it because it was just for that one purpose. So what you do with that feedback, I'm not saying don't ever give evaluative feedback, but what you do with it is whether or not they're going to continue thinking about it or do something with it. So let's bring that back to the mentors, right? If we tell them, which we want to because we're kind people, that was a great lesson. It's a judgment, but it doesn't help me necessarily know why it was a great lesson. So instead, if you can offer some feedback that's data, like why did you say it was a great lesson? Instead of going straight there, think about what did they do? You know, 80% of your kids were engaged, or give them, you know, at any given point in the lesson, if you can track, like keeping track of time, what was going on, or all of your kids had their homework ready to go and they all did really well on it, or whatever, some non-judgment oriented data, and then followed by some questions. How did you know to do that? What made you decide to go to the front of the room when when Jimmy was doing whatever he was doing? Or what did you think about when you were planning this lesson? Or something like that, okay? This side over here is going to help support growth. So when you think about feedback, we want to very often hang out in these, especially these first two, because like I said, we're kind people and we want to boost them. We want them to feel good. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you can add to that judgment some data and a question, it's going to help them think about why they did what they did. Why did it go well? Why did it not go well? As opposed to just, that was great or that was awful. Does that make sense? Yeah, we have a little bit of time. So you have a nice piece at the end of your packet, page 13 and 14, that basically is these 5 columns. So why don't you take a moment and you can do, let's do this protocol with a neighbor nearby. So you need 2 or 3 people, it doesn't matter. And read the section. So you're going to read straight down column A. Read through the whole A. And then look up. And when you're all looking at each other, you've finished the column. And just say something like, what are you thinking about? What connections are you making? What questions do you have? And then read column B and say something. Okay, so read each column and then have a brief say something moment. Okay, finish that last thought. What questions are resonating or bubbling up for you? From the reading, what questions are bubbling up? I know, it's 6:30, right? People start having fewer questions at that point. Okay, let's just tie the bow on this then. So the coach uses data, and we could say the mentor, right? The mentor uses data and mediative questions, okay, that's your goal, to enable the mentee to make his or her own judgments, personal observations, and inferences. Okay, there's a place for them, but the goal is, can you offer data and questions in a way that helps them judge themselves, make some observations, and make some inferences, okay? That doesn't mean there isn't a place for evaluation, but you're not an evaluative role, right? So if you, in order to help prepare them for that, if we can provide data, which could be a videotape, or it could be you scripting, right? And then you talking about it afterwards. Does that make sense? All right, let's do a wrap up. Wellman, one of our authors of the book, talks about if you don't focus on something, you try to focus on everything, and then it all gets lost. So pick one thing that you're kind of going to walk out of here with. What's your most important point for you that you want to either remember, think about, try, do, and turn to someone nearby you and share that with them? What's one thing? Okay, finish that thought. We're going to do a real quick share out in this way. This is called Partners Report. So I'm going to ask one person from this table to share something they heard, not necessarily your own, but just what's one important point you heard here? Anybody?
We talked about being more thoughtful with the questioning and making them do more of the reflective questions.
Thank you. What's one thing you heard at this table? Anybody? Better listening. What's one thing from this table? Okay, listening and reflecting. What's one thing from this table?
We're going to live in the D&E on our feedback.
Living in the D and E on the feedback. How about this table? What's one thing?
Taking the I out of it.
Okay, removing yourself, right? What's one thing from this table? Okay. Data, mediative questions. What's one thing here? Okay. Effective listening. What's one thing from here? Okay, and what's one thing from here? No I statements. And what's one thing from here that you heard? Listening. Okay, so y'all have something to keep in your mind as you move forward. Connie, any last words? So did Yep. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.